Adolf Hitler, a name that evokes terror, power, and one of the darkest times in history. But as a man who started as a young aspiring artist, he became the dictator who would lead the world into an unprecedented war. What happened for a marginalized individual to become the emblem of evil in the 20th century? In this video we will not only talk about Hitler's rise to power, but we will also try to understand the complex psychological, social, and political factors that brought him there. The combination of broken dreams, deep resentment, and unbridled ambition were the fuel that ignited the tragedy of the last century, from the days when he wandered around Vienna trying to be an artist until the moment when his distorted view of the world collapsed on itself. Let's explore the milestones. The alliances and decisions that turned Hitler into the architect of a global nightmare. We will unravel how his personal failures and historical context merged to create one of humanity's most infamous leaders, and how his promises of eternal glory became the prelude to unparalleled destruction. Because understanding Hitler is not only a historical question, but a warning for the present and the future. It all began in Vienna, where young Adolf was trying to be accepted as an artist, rejected on multiple occasions by the Academy of Fine Arts. His hopes of finding a place in the art world faded. However, that emptiness did not disappear, but was filled with bitterness and resentment. Hitler began to see enemies everywhere, and soon found his canvas in extreme nationalism and propaganda, a work far more dangerous than he ever imagined. His artistic talent transformed into an ability to manipulate symbols and emotions, and his charisma became a weapon capable of inspiring and terrorizing at the same time during World War I. Hitler served as a soldier, an experience that not only marked him physically, but left him with a deep sense of purpose, returning glory to Germany from a wounded and frustrated soldier to a charismatic figure of the German extreme right. Hitler shaped a hate speech that aligned with the resentment and frustrations of a defeated and impoverished people. Germany, devastated after the Treaty of Versailles, was fertile ground for the promises of a leader who offered them a clear enemy and hope for a better future. Hitler used economic despair and political crises as fuel to fuel his rise, seizing every opportunity to make himself heard and expand his influence through shocking oratory and propaganda calculated to the smallest detail. Hitler transformed the Nazi Party into a mass movement that promised to restore Germany to its lost greatness. His speech, full of promises, restoration, and revenge, resonated deeply in a people that felt humiliated and marginalized. But make no mistake, it wasn't just eloquence that brought Hitler to power. It was the mixture of manipulation, fear, strategic alliances, and the complicit silence of many who preferred not to see the monster that was brewing in their own country. It was the inability to stop a leader who took advantage of the fears and ignorance of a society that sought quick answers and easy culprits. When Hitler took office as Chancellor in 1933, his journey to absolute power was just beginning. He used every tool available to cement his regime. From the brutal repression exercised by the SA and SS to the meticulous elimination of their political opponents, Nazi propaganda permeated all areas of daily life, conditioning the perception of reality for millions of Germans. With an economy beginning to recover and a state apparatus efficient in social control, Hitler was able to materialize his vision of an expansive and totalitarian king. The annexation of Austria, the incorporation of the Uvities, and the subsequent invasion of Poland were only the first movements of a much more ambitious plan, intended to redraw the map of Europe and subjugate those he considered inferior. In the end, the dictator who had promised a king that would last 1,000 years, found himself locked in an underground ship, facing the absolute defeat of his nation. The war he himself had unleashed turned against him, and German cities burned under Allied bombing. The dreams of greatness that had attracted millions dissolved into ashes, while the man who had proclaimed his own immortality chose to die alone, unable to take the consequences of his actions. Hitler, who forged his way, based on hatred, manipulation, and an unbridled lust for power, he finally had to face the inevitable consequence of his decisions, the destruction of everything he claimed to protect and love in the last days of his life. As Allied troops advanced, and Berlin fell into ruins, Hitler took refuge in illusions of non-existent victories and meaningless strategies. His collaborators, increasingly demoralized and less numerous, witnessed the decline of a leader than in his obsession with absolute power. He only managed to sow pain and die. What lessons can we draw from all this? Perhaps the most dangerous monsters do not always come from outside but are born within. When the fear and ambitions of an entire society resonate with the wrong voice, that the greatest danger does not necessarily lie in physical strength, but in the ideas we accept without questioning, and that in the end, hatred and intolerance do not lead to greatness, but to self-destruction. The story of Adolf Hitler is a clear warning of what can happen when desperation meets a leader willing to play on humanity's worst instincts. It is a reminder of the importance of decisions, both individual and collective, and that the cost of silence in the face of injustice can be extremely high. It is not only about understanding how one man could come to power, but also about understanding how an entire society could be led into darkness. Because in the end, the most important lesson is not just about Hitler. It's about us and our ability to choose between hatred and compassion, between fear and hope.